Thank you for joining today's presentation. My focus is about digital. It's about creating the office of a chief digital officer. I'll do my presentation in three parts. I'm going to focus on number one, the importance of this role, that chief digital officer, what they should be tasked with, what they could be doing. Number two, I'm going to talk about practical examples from brands within and outside our industry that we can learn from. And three, I'm going to assume that you already have someone focused on digital, perhaps a team that is focused on digital. I'm going to give you some ideas and thoughts on things you should be thinking about to drive success out there. My name is Sandeep Kapoor. I'm an educator with Digital Credence. What I've had the opportunity to do over time is work with many brands working on their digital strategy. I still remember it was 1999 and I had the opportunity to launch Burlington Coat Factory with an online presence. And very soon I had the opportunity to work with retailers, financial institutions, entertainment, travel, sports companies. The key thing that I learned was you had a lot of these brands that started with digital, they went to digital only, and ultimately their success was fueled by an omni-channel environment. And that is one thing I'd like you to keep in mind when you think about your digital strategy and about that role of the chief digital officer. You want to keep in mind that you have multiple channels. How can you use digital to do more? And think about it, what is happening today? The paradigm shift continues. We have branch, we have the kiosk, we have the contact center. These are not used as much as perhaps an intelligent IVR, which is today's AI-based contact center environment. It is the ATM that is used more frequently than the branch, but it is online and then it is mobile that is driving that transaction. So for us to have a branch manager, somebody in charge of the ATM fleet, someone in charge of the contact center, we've really got to start thinking in terms of what do we do to manage our biggest asset, that branch, that digital branch that serves all kinds of people, demographics, age, economics, employment, all of that. Whether it is the handyman, whether it is the economics teacher, the cardiologist, whether it is a retired couple or that emerging generation Z, everyone is seeking a relationship with your financial institution that's driven by three underlying principles. Principle number one, make it easy. I am in a hurry. Number two, give me a reason to transact. Give me incentives to drive transactions. And number three, make sure you protect me, make it secure, protect my personal data. If you do these three things with me, I will work with your financial institution. This is what consumers want, and we need to make it easy for them. Now, I've talked about those different physical branches. And if you think about it, if you're serving perhaps 100,000, 10,000, a million consumers, most of us have a branch or a contact center environment that takes care of a fairly large number of these folks. However, our digital branch is our largest. It is available 24/7 all year long. It can be the most efficient and the most effective, which is why we really need to think of perhaps a three-pronged approach. In step one, think about what would it take to create a .com within our environment. How could I drive success from that .com? In phase two, I would like to see what can I do to integrate that .com within my organization. How do I support my existing channels? And in phase three, how can I offer the consumer I serve a continuous, seamless way for them to transact with me? This is omni-channel. It starts with a focus on the digital branch. It is absolutely vital for our success. If you want to deliver digital effectiveness, remember, most of us today are branch first, and then we created that mobile banking application. And many of us are headed towards where we have mobile, and then there's lots and lots of branches that are or mobile applications that are supported by our physical location. So every now and then, as a consumer, if I'm stuck, I can go and transact at the branch. I can do more. I can reach out to a contact center. Your long-term strategy is to start thinking about that small device, that small mobile phone, that iPad, perhaps that home computer, and start thinking about how can we be relevant to the consumer that we serve? What would it take for us to engage with that consumer? What we've really got to think about is that device moves, that device has preferences, that device can keep track of what the consumer is clicking on. And we have to think about a long-term approach to make sure that we are providing practical, relevant offers to that consumer. Very simple example, think of it this way. If you're looking to go on a vacation, you're not sure where to go, you start zeroing in on specific areas. Remember that vacation company does not put all the offers out there for you on page one. They start zeroing in on what you want to do to try to drive perfection. It's the same thing that takes place in the world of financial services, because what we are trying to do is make sure that we can present exactly what needs to be done to that consumer, finalizing it, putting it within the cloud onto that digital device, using AI, using machine intelligence to have effective conversations. As you think about this, let's also start defining our digital objectives. Number one, if I was responsible for a digital infrastructure, my number one goal is to attract people and to convert them, to get them to adopt my products or services. My second big reason is I want to keep making the consumer experience better and better. And I want to serve my existing consumers. I actually do not want to get caught into the trap of looking for that proverbial bird in the bush. I want to take care of that bird in hand. And that's my approach to driving success with digital. My third goal that is extremely important, and over time I have learned, unfortunately, this is one that is neglected a lot by not just financial institutions and others, is that because I have a digital branch and my digital branch is open 24/7, I need to come up with a way to support my other channels consistently, the right message all the time, and extremely quickly, because no one wants to wait until the next day to get an answer to a question. I recently enjoyed a conversation with a gentleman that runs lending for a community-based financial institution. And I was absolutely thrilled to learn that his approved to book ratio is at 99%. It is way above the norm in the industry, but this man never had it there. It was a lot lower than that. And one of the challenges he found was that he found that if people were coming into his branch at 4:30 and his branch was supposed to close in 30 minutes, his loan officers avoided setting up a meeting. They said, you need to come back tomorrow. Imagine that in today's world, you coming up to a brand and saying, I want to do business with you, and the brand turning you away, asking you to come back the very next day. That's what we need to think about. What can we do to create better, unique digital experiences so we can do more? So the three things again here are to find new consumers, to enhance the experience for existing consumers, and what should I be able to do to support my other channels consistently and quickly? Keep one other thing in mind. We are there to provide 24/7 service. And if you take a look at the numbers I present here today, generally speaking, most people transact with us after hours. And these people also look for answers 24 hours a day on those weekends. The physical branch is not equipped to provide answers 24/7, which is why digital plays a crucial role in solving that problem. So our prescription is the Chief Digital Officer is chartered to create a foundational digital strategy. And your strategy should not evolve around channels. Think about your strategy being focused on and around the needs of the consumer you seek and the consumer you serve. Take a look at that consumer and start looking at how this consumer interacts with you across all your channels, including your digital channels. You also need to look at those journeys that the consumers can conduct, whether it is a car, whether it is a home loan, whether it is them coming up and depositing money with you, whether it is a credit card, a debit card, security. All of these factors are important. We've got to think about what can we do to make that experience easy. You do this by conducting a journey audit. What can you do only digital, meaning you do not need any other channel to do that? I see some folks have phenomenal maturity where you can open an account in under 10 minutes, and some have even taken it to under 5 minutes. I do not need to visit the branch for that. Perhaps I'm an existing consumer with a financial institution. I can apply for a loan and I can take care of the entire process in a few minutes without having to talk to someone or come into a branch. That is digital only. A partial digital journey is where I perhaps initiate the process online or in person, and then I follow up in another channel. And of course, you've got the completely no digital channel. And I'll give you an example is perhaps you're coming in to have a one-on-one meeting with an advisor at one of your branches. And what you do is when I come to that meeting obviously has an in-person element. But what could I do to perhaps schedule the appointment online, perhaps a survey to follow up? I can immerse or insert digital into that experience. The second aspect of creating a foundational digital strategy is measuring your digital proficiency, which means can your brand be found digitally? And then on your website or sites, can consumers find what they need to do? And the third aspect is, are your employees using digital to engage? Are they proficient at digital? Are they able to mentor the consumer you serve using digital? All of this is important. The impact of having a foundational digital strategy is dramatic. It costs 16% of what a typical, your overall budget, and your ability to outreach, serve people is 73%, which basically comes down to that for every $100 in your budget, It's costing you $16 to serve 73% of your consumers. And you're giving them 24/7 access to your brand. Plus, you're being a little creepy, but helpful creepy, because you know what they clicked on, you know where they came, you have the ability to track them. It's your responsibility, or your chief digital officer's responsibility, to make sure that you track them to personalize the experiences. The key is, have you taken that person and elevated that role to become a chief digital officer? What is the role of this chief digital officer? There is a lot. There are a lot of options in terms of who is going to be responsible for digital. Is it someone from the branch? What have I done to equip them? And typically, the chief digital officer is responsible for revenue. You drive better experiences to drive revenue by essentially offering the consumer a better consumer experience, by driving loans, and basically raising sales awareness within your organization. You focus on technology, on making sure that you provide the best information technology. They understand that, they know and understand the cloud, and they're also responsible for security of transactions within the organization. Finally, the chief digital officer is the architect of your future strategy. They're thinking about marketing, branding. They're thinking about analytics and big data. And very importantly, they're looking at training not only employees, but also mentoring your consumer to do more. And if you think about it, it's not just machines, it is AI enabling people to do more. There is cognitive collaboration. So that perfect chief digital officer is either someone you get with these skills, or someone you can start mentoring to start thinking about these skills so they can do so much more for who they serve. Let us take a look at three case studies. A case study of someone who is less than 500 million, someone who is 2 billion, and someone else who is 5 billion. But I'll also tell you something I have learned from a friend who owns a brand. She owns a small company that has gone digital, and this small company started engaging consumers one on one. Her lesson to me was, she said, Sandeep, on the web, no one knows how big or small you are. If you leverage your resources correctly, you can have that one-to-one conversation to do more. That smaller financial institution, one of the things they did when they were setting up that role of the chief digital officer is they conducted a journey analysis. And very clearly, they quickly knew that they cannot focus on everything. So the focus was on highlighting three specific journeys. Those were initial key journeys. And I'll tell you, as I was involved with them, the three journeys we picked were: number one, we wanted to make sure that we were doing a good job to provide a sticky product to that consumer. We wanted that consumer to use our debit or credit card to transact with us. That was our number one journey. It was followed by a journey for a car loan, followed by a journey where we started talking to that consumer about retirement and investment options. We started with this, we've done much more, but the focus is, as we did this, we involved key stakeholders. We involved management. We involved people on the back end who were responsible for processing. And we also looked at the front end people, trying to make things easier for them as they serve these consumers. We created an agile team that is dedicated to the digital branch and accountable. It's that person who, when they get a question from a consumer, a concern from the consumer, they're stuck, they're in another country, they're trying to solve a problem. There's got to be people who have the urgency and responsibility to resolve that issue. It's about us leveraging education and digital to drive a cultural paradigm shift. You see, we didn't go out and hire brand new people. Most of the people we used were our own, and most of the consumers we were serving were already being served by us. So what we decided to do was we said, let's try to educate them further, talk to them more, so we can do more for them. The number one success this chief digital officer had was she never looked out to create an empire of her own. She was basically there. She went to every other department and said, how can my digital department help you? She wanted to leverage resources from other parts of the organization. And that is what fueled and continues to fuel her financial institution success. A 9 out of 10 is what uh, she gets. And she, in my opinion, has been one of the perfect dot-coms that delivers on an omni-channel promise to those consumers that she serves. And from a phenomenal score of 9 out of 10, I'm going to take you to an organization that is a lot bigger, at least 5 times bigger, who has done, in my opinion, an okay job, and the results have been even more disappointing. Let's see some of the mistakes they have made, but let's start with what they did well. Initially, they did a thorough journey analysis, and they had, in my opinion, or have a great onboarding program. When their consumer joins the financial institution, they're doing a very effective job of staying in touch with that consumer, talking to that consumer about other products and services. They send out useful, relevant information. What they also do is that they're leveraging the contact center to push digital. If you have a question, reach out to that contact center employee. They are helpful, they are good. The challenge they have run into is there is a lot of channel conflict. You see, there's the VP of IT, there's the VP of online and mobile, there's the head of marketing, there's the head of branch. And all of a sudden, the chief digital officer is really competing with technology, with marketing, and with the branch. This is not good. They try to make decisions driven where they're trying to get everybody on board. They're not willing to try small pilots, small projects. And what has ended up happening is because resources do not get shared in this organization, the chief digital officer decided to create a environment of their own. They created an environment of their own, basically an empire that had marketing, had technology, had branch people. All of a sudden, it's duplication, it's more conflict, and a leadership disconnect that has actually made this organization go 5 steps forward and probably 7 to 8 steps backwards. And it all came down to something we need to recognize as that 3-letter word that is horrible: ego. This person she wanted to create an empire for herself. And for that reason, all of a sudden, she created an organization that is disconnected. Again, I will say 2 really good things to learn from them is: number 1, your onboarding program needs to be perfect. And number 2, think about leveraging the contact center, which is a connection between your real world and your physical world. Let's move on to an organization that is twice in size. And this particular organization is basically all hands on deck for digital. They have no branches. They have a contact center. They have ATMs. And they have a traditional direct mail processing center. They do what I feel is phenomenal omni-channel messaging. They send out connected ads. If you see an ad on TV, on YouTube, on social media, you see a billboard, what ends up happening is you want to know the rest of the story. The ad encourages you to go online. And when you find the ad, there's actually very targeted one-to-one messaging. There's a big focus on analytics. There's a big focus on understanding the data that is coming in. They're using artificial intelligence. And they're using chatbots to answer simple questions because they know that they do not have a branch. And if they do a good job, their contact center spends less time resolving and answering those questions. They have this benchmark where every month they're trying to do more. They're trying to change. They have quarterly checkups to drive and measure success, but those quarterly checkups are very interesting because they do so much every month. There's so much positive change that that quarterly checkup seems like a very good morale booster where the entire organization is engaged. Top to down, there is a bustling culture of urgent improvement. These people are doing more. Three very significant lessons from the three examples that I've shared. Number one, focus on consumers, focus on consumer journeys. Number two, leverage AI, automation, technology to drive efficiency. And number three, do what my friend has done at her financial institution. It's no ego, it's servant leadership. It's essentially trying to get the consumer you serve in front of everybody so you can do more in order to drive success with it, with that particular organization. I've talked about financial institutions and that chief digital officer, what they have been able to accomplish out there. But let's look outside our industry, and I'll take you to three brands that I have been very personally involved with. A lot of people chuckle, but I had the unique opportunity of working with Anthropology in the year 2003, where Anthropology went from one engagement platform to another. And Anthropology had a very unique, still does, they have a very unique approach of how they engage their consumer. They want the vibrancy of product. They want to draw you in. They want every time you come into their physical store for you to discover something new, to find something new that is stored in the same spot. They want that change, and essentially their website is a replication of what that in-store experience is like. They want you to feel that in-store experience, and that is what they did very well. The person that ran digital, she did a phenomenal job in making sure that she understood the culture of the physical store as she built this digital environment in order to do more. The idea here again is that that consumer comes in, that consumer transacts, the consumer should feel like they're actually in a store, perhaps at their headquarters on Market Street in Philadelphia, but that's the aura of what you want to create with your digital environment. Another one that I had the pleasure of working with Overstock.com. Overstock started as a small business serving and reselling products. They have grown into an entity that is a force to reckon with. In fact, they're even toying around with the idea of launching their own digital currency. But what Overstock I can learn from them is the idea of extreme personalization. Because if you think about it, they sell so many types of products and services, but what they have done beautifully is they're able to zero in, they're able to focus in on what you want, its preferences. And even though I'm showing you a computer screenshot, remember Overstock offers a really good mobile experience. They know you want to transact, they're trying to drive efficiency, and that is the big lesson you want to learn from this brand. It's about A/B testing, it's about follow up, it's about efficiency, it's about making things exclusive. Let that consumer feel they're part of a special club. And of course, if you look at how airlines have done things, it's pretty amazing. Even today, I get an alert from Delta that basically is telling me that the TSA line at the airport is longer than it normally is. I'd like you, Sandeep, to show up 45 minutes sooner. Think about this. They were like a traditional financial institution. They had people, they had branches. You bought your ticket either in a branch or at the contact center. You took a paper copy of that ticket. You walked up to the counter. Perhaps they printed you a fresh copy, and then you walked in. Well, very soon the airline introduced a kiosk, and you started thinking of that kiosk like an ATM. You started transacting over there to where you eventually now use your own kiosk, which is your mobile banking device. And that mobile banking device is what gets you in and out quickly. That's what drives a lot of your success. Again, as you look at these outside our industry, think about it. Would you find it acceptable if your airline basically said, hey, you need to contact us at 5 p.m. or 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, or only between 8 and 5? Impulse buying at Overstock, or perhaps that higher ticket clothing item or homeware item from the folks over at Anthropology. How can you mirror all these themes? Go back to someone being given the responsibility of driving your digital strategy. I'm going to take you to a brand called Pockets. Pockets is a financial institution. It's actually recognized as one of the top 10, some say perhaps the top 5, some even say perhaps the top 3 brands in the world as far as digital banking. Pockets is launched by a brand called ICICI. It's a bank in India that has 4,500 branches, more than 14,000 ATMs today. They're in 19 countries serving 50 million consumers. Pockets has 250 plus features, and it is a secure digital wallet. Most people who start a transaction on Pockets complete that transaction, and they have nearly a 5-star rating. It's omni-channel. They facilitate transactions online, the branch, the ATM, contact center, and merchant. There's a couple of things I'd like you to keep in mind. There is a strategy. Number one, they have branded it. They've given it a name. It's not just their online or mobile banking environment. There is someone who has the job. They're responsible for the branch called Pockets. And number two is they continue to work on a seamless continuum, which is I need to make sure that my consumers' transactions are complete. And it's not just for that digital only transaction, but what can I do to drive efficiency on the other channels? What sort of digital efficiency can I drive there? It's a digital wallet summarized that does online and mobile. It's easy, it's intuitive, it's simple. And even though it's already been adopted by a lot of people, they're always looking for ways to market and enhance the value proposition. That's the role of what the CDO needs to do out there. Overall purpose of this Pockets, they want to offer 24/7 branch functionality. They want to support other channels. They would prefer if you pre-stage the transaction on your mobile device or your digital device, and then you contacted them. They want you to use it to schedule time, to message them. They have payment apps on the mobile device. Use me as a transactional wallet. They have a lot of consumer journeys, and they do not mind using your device or a version of your device on a kiosk for in-branch transactions. That's what's extremely important and unique out there. It's built on these 9 principles. Number one, it is about branding, making sure that you give it a name and you define a purpose. They want to give you reasons why you should sign up for a membership with Pockets, and they make it easy. The virtual wallet or the transactional instrument is extremely important in terms of what needs to be done. They continue to provide real-time updates to keep the application experience better, keep improving it, and also to keep it safer. This makes transactions very personalized and relevant. They're providing phenomenal security, and they're also incorporating not just biometrics, but if I'm not sure if that's your face, and if I'm not sure that that's your voice, perhaps you need to touch the keypad to ensure that it is you. So they're doing multimodal authentication. They're doing it with the idea of serving the consumer across channel. And probably the most important principle is they want the employees to use the application, because they know that if the employees use the application, that employee is going to push and tell you what works, what doesn't work, and they're all part of what needs to be done. If you are prescribing the role to your chief digital officer, these are some of the things you need to highlight to drive more. Let's think about applying some of these best practices in terms of what needs to be done. I've put together a simple digital success checklist. Start by listing what journeys do you provide? What are some of the things your financial institution can do for consumers? Now go back and see how many of these journeys can you fulfill online? Whatever you cannot, you need to start addressing. And whatever you do, you need to always keep improving. Remember, there's always someone innovating every single day. They're doing more. You want to try to provide that as a service as well. What digital services do you provide? Can you do account opening? Can you do lending? What about decisioning? What about back-end processing? What about the fulfillment? What about reporting? Reporting not just to your own organization, but also to the consumer. What about virtual banking? How much can you do? What about the wallet? And what if I had questions, I needed support? So think about all of these as digital service categories. And now go back and see, are you prepared? Do you have the right products? Do you have a virtual branch? And most importantly, are your people trained to do more to serve others? So as I talked about this, I'd like to now take you through 3 steps. Number one, think about conducting a digital maturity assessment. What you do is you analyze your current digital environment and you review these consumer journeys. Think about what support you're providing for these digital initiatives and journeys. How much people support do you need to serve that consumer effectively? Analyze your total infrastructure. Look at the branch, ATM, kiosk, contact center. Look at the products and services that you offer. Start looking at small things and big things. If you look, for example, at the ATM, can you deliver a digital receipt to that consumer? Can you make that transaction faster, quicker for that consumer? If I'm calling into the contact center, can you not accelerate the authentication process using technology, now allowing the contact center employee to be assured that it is indeed me, and so that they can converse effectively? Now, understand people preparedness, which is, do your people and your consumers understand digital? And number two, can you support digital effectively? I think this is very important. In stage two of what you do out here is visualize an ideal aspirational state. Start looking at local, national, FinTech. Compare yourself with them. Next, start looking at consumer expectations. Start looking at net promoter score, surveys, tracking. Tracking meaning, are they coming and getting the answers? Are they coming and just dropping out? Are they going somewhere else? Start thinking about defining management expectations. What does management want if digital was a servant that was serving the entire organization? Number three, focus in on not everything, but 3 to 5 unique consumer user journeys. What you do is define the gap between the aspirational and the current state. You want to do more, I'm sure. Start now taking a few of those journeys and validate it through looking at the data you get, what processes you have to follow, what systems you need to touch. Zero in on key consumer journeys. And I think by implication, I've implied a few journeys. Onboarding is a huge attempt. It's very, very important. I also want to make sure that in addition to onboarding, my fulfillment journeys are good. My application process is good. My reporting is good. Start thinking about, okay, you launch a pilot, but how would I scale from pilot to going enterprise wide? Start looking at metrics. What should you measure? And the idea of continuous readjustment. Take a different approach to this. If you have been a branch manager for a physical location, it is your responsibility to make sure that the branch is clean, the branch has got the right temperature, the branch is safe, it looks good. If there is a leak, you take care of the leak. If there is some damage, you get it, say, painted. You make sure things are working. You make sure people are out there. Well, in the digital world, it is your idea to make sure that it is convenient, it is safe, it provides useful information to that consumer, and that consumer knows that you're going to keep making changes to enhance that user's experience. Consumers expect positive change, and therefore keep in mind that if you are not updating your app for a better experience at least once a month, a lot of people do it more, you're probably not improving. That all is the job of that chief digital officer. I talked about these journeys, but just to give you an idea of the different types of journeys, I usually put it into 5 plus perhaps 2 other categories. I want to make sure that I'm covering enough as far as, hey, this is the types of accounts you can have. It's credit cards, debit cards. It's about providing a loan for you for a vehicle. It's about helping you with a roof over your head, perhaps leveraging the equity in your home to do more for you. It's to help you with life, insurance, retirement, wealth management, vacation, college savings, all of that. It's about business. It's about providing business services, loans, deposits, credit cards, insurance, and all of that. I talked about 2 other things. The 2 other things are, number one, I need to be involved in the community. I need to let the community know what value my financial institution is delivering for them. That's important. And number 7, I call it important alerts, which is if we've got a branch that is closed, look it up there. If our website is down, look it up there. If there is some positive news in the media, if there is some negative news in the media, we need to make sure that all of this information is captured effectively. That is what is important. And this is all part of that chief digital officer's role. They take a look at these top 7 journey categories. They come up with sub journeys. They're always staying focused, trying to implement one journey at a time to do more and more for the different consumers that they serve. Ultimately, whether it is digital or it is a physical channel, it's all about personalization. It is about relevance. It is about conversion. If I walk up to your ATM should not ask me to choose my language. Your ATM should not ask me what I want. If I have used your machine before, it should talk to me and say, "Hi, Sandeep, do you still want your favorite transaction? Do you still want $60? A financial institution that had started with this as their underlying fundamental initial approach, they started driving 70% response rates, which is when they started sending out messages to their consumers, 70% of their consumers pay attention to that receipt. And they were able to drive 21% conversion. Why? Because it was timely. But what is even more important is if you do things correctly, and if you think about a structured way to onboard or to use 1, 2, 3-step ways to convert, you can do a lot more. So this same financial institution is helping a lot of people define 3-touch campaigns where they lead you, they probe, they learn a little more, they probe, they learn a little more, and then they convert. Imagine driving 40% conversion. You can only do this in a digital integrated to your traditional channels environment. This particular financial institution even uses their ATMs to collect leads. People come in, put their mobile number at the ATM. They're not on us consumers for this financial institution, and this financial institution reaches out to them, perhaps waives the withdrawal fee, again with the idea of providing useful products and services. The key here again goes down to the title, which is personalize, make it relevant, and nurture them to drive conversion. Take a look at some of the bigger brands, what they're doing. You see a lot from Ally Bank, and Ally has taken 2 approaches that I think are very unique. Number 1, Ally keeps telling you in their marketing that, look, we do more because we don't have physical branches. Therefore, we're able to do more for you. The second part that Ally does that is really interesting and unique is if you take a look at the commercials from Ally Bank, these commercials are about word of mouth. They're basically telling you that, look, why would you go to someone without knowing how that brand is treating other people? That is the value you want to keep in mind as you serve your consumers. I walk away from Ally with 2 simple strategies. Number 1, I want to create a better user experience. And number 2, I want to capture word of mouth to share. Safe America Credit Union is a very small organization. This is my other favorite chief digital officer, Stephen, who runs digital amongst other things at this financial institution, has done a great job in turning this smaller financial institution with the objective of trying to educate his consumer and tell them about all the products and services that his brand can provide, that he can fulfill. And he realizes that he's never going to be as efficient as Ally or as big as Bank of America. But he uses that simple mantra of trying to communicate, to connect, to solve a problem, to enhance his consumers' experiences across channel. Of course, you see Bank of America doing a significant amount of work where they launched Erica, and Erica is an AI-based chatbot. And the Bank of America application keeps seeing improvement all the time. They're doing more for the consumer. You keep seeing these changes. It's hard to keep up, but the key thing here is, remember, it's about them enabling experiences for the end user, for the consumer. That's what we want to strive towards. We're all trying to create that Amazon type environment where I can remember who you are, to try to talk to you about a specific product and service. I talk to you about upselling you, doing more with you, offering convenience. And if I could somehow use the Amazon mantra of trying to close the transaction out in two-step, three-step transactions, that's what you want to strive towards. The role of the CDO is to look at all of this to try to do more. The number one job your chief digital officer needs to stress within your organization is get your consumer to be sold on virtual banking, which is not just getting them to open an account with you online, but I call it these 7 specific steps. See, if I was onboarding you to my financial institution, I would make sure that you set up online banking. Number 2, you download the app. Number 3, I teach you how to pay bills. Number 4, I teach you how to deposit your check using your mobile device. Number 5, I sign you up for secure e-statements. But I don't stop there, because what I want to do is I need you to sign up and pay attention to my emails so I can stay in touch with you. And number 7, I want you to know who I am on social media so you can stay in touch with me, so I can leverage your word of mouth testimonials. And 3, I can leverage content to do so much more. It's not just about transforming the digital experience or transforming the branch experience. It's about transforming consumer experiences across channel. That's your approach. That's what the chief digital officer needs to do. Your site, your brand needs to deliver on 5 key principles, whether you're talking about a person, whether you're talking about a product, whether you're talking about a service. Start with a succinct value proposition, something that is an elevator pitch of the service that you provide. Second, make it search friendly, tag it, use the right words, the right content so people can find it easily. Number 3, put your current key offers out there for people to look at. Number 4, give them contact information, but make it easy for them to contact you. Don't make them fill out a long form. What if they were to just click from that page? You should know that's where they're calling you from. And number 5, put in relevant word of mouth testimonials. I think that is something that is extremely important to drive success even further. The next big thing is we need to keep our focus on what can we do to leverage artificial intelligence to do more. Think of it this way. Many people who today are implementing AI-based projects are doing it for the cool factor or just for a little short-term gain. Think about that employee. What if you hired a chatbot who was a dedicated employee at your organization, whose job it is not just to support the consumers you serve, but also to support your internal employees, people who work for your organization, to provide them with the right types of answers for what they need, for what they want. That is the promise of AI. That is something that will help eliminate human bias. That's what provides consistent, rules-based, dynamic advice. And that is what scales to serve 24/7 so your people have time to do more. I've actually got an opportunity to run a webinar on how to choose an AI provider effectively. Let me assure you, there's a lot of projects that are going on today, but many people are focused on the front end without recognizing the value of what all needs to be done at the back end to do more. If you'd like to participate in this particular webinar, you'll have my contacts information at the end of this presentation. Just send me a note and I'll send you the invite to the webinar. Plus, I'm also planning to put together a guide or checklist in order to do more. Overall, when I started this presentation off in the beginning, I spoke about creating personalized, connected experiences. And if you think about it, we have our contact center and our branch. Those are assisted service. We need to come up with a strategy to empower people to do more. So Chief Digital Officer, in this case, your job is to make sure that the employee that serves people has all the information to do so efficiently and correctly. It's about certain channels offering anytime self-service. In this case, your CDO needs to think about providing simplicity, convenience, and making it interactive without making it difficult for the consumer. And of course, there's the idea of providing anytime, anywhere self-service through online, through mobile, and perhaps again through the IVR. This is consumer focused. It's for the empowered consumer who is on the go. When you put your strategy together, think about those 3 prescriptive steps that I talked about in the beginning and about how can you serve your consumer well across all your channels. That's what you need to look at to do more. There's 3 very important things I want to bring up as I summarize today's presentation. Number 1, that role of the Chief Digital Officer is strategic to your survival, and therefore think about coming up with an elaborate way to give them the tools they need to succeed. It's not just technology, it's not just process, but it's also training for them to do so correctly. The second thing I talked a lot about some of the educational webinars and things like that. There are 2 webinars I'd like to highlight. I have a webinar that I'm hosting on the 31st of, on the 30th of June. And this webinar that I'm doing towards the end of June is on the perfect way to onboard your consumers, because that is something that drives significant results for you. The third one I talked about is I am doing one on the application of artificial intelligence. One of the industry conferences is hosting a webinar by me on the 16th of July. I can send you information to that webinar, or you could also participate in a webinar that I will do on the same subject a little later. I appreciate you joining me for this webinar. I hope you found the information useful. Do connect with me on LinkedIn and do send me an email about suggestions, your feedback. And as always, I appreciate all of your support. Thank you, folks, and good luck as you define and improve your digital strategy.